The most unlikely mentor was the grocery store manager. We both happened to be 34 years old at the time. I was bagging groceries and he was running the whole store. And he said, Matt, if you really want your money back, real estate, that's the final frontier where the average person has a real shot at creating some wealth.
Welcome to the Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast, brought to you by the Rental Property Owner Association, providing benefits and services to real estate investors and rental property owners for over 48 years. With your host, Brian Hamrick from Hamrick Investment Group.
This episode is sponsored by Green Property Management, managing everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area. Find out more at greenpropertymgt.com. And RCB and Associates, helping real estate investors and small business owners navigate the complex world of health insurance and Medicare benefits at rcbassociatesllc.com. Hello and welcome to episode 145. Matt Theriault is a Marine Corps Desert Storm veteran who built a successful career in the music business and then watched it all disappear seemingly overnight, to the point where Matt found himself bagging groceries for $7 an hour just to survive. It was while working this minimum wage job that Matt received advice that would change his life, and he's now an accomplished real estate investor and mentor with a cash-flowing portfolio of over 100 units. These units have made Matt financially independent, and his approach to investing is conservative, simple, to the point, and efficient. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Brian. Glad to be here.
I'd like to start with a little bit of your history. You're a Marine Corps veteran, Desert Storm. Love to hear how that has kind of influenced you as you go through your real estate career.
Sure. Yeah. As a teenager, I was a disc jockey and music producer and didn't have a whole school in very high regard. So after school, I just did not want to do any more school. But I had this big fear of 18 years old, being homeless someday, because I knew I was going to have to get out of the house and I'd have to get a job. And that was a big concern for me. So, as a logical 18-year-old brain would work, I thought, well, if I just join the Marine Corps Reserves, I'll always have a roof over my head, and food to eat. And so that was like my plan B, just in case the music business didn't go well. And so I went to the Marine Corps Reserves, and when I got in, all the drill instructors were all about kill, and you're going to die if you don't do this right, and you're going to kill your partner if you fail him and you don't have his back. And I was just like, wait a minute, I just came in to get a little bit of a side job. I just wanted maybe that GI Bill at some point down the road. What is all this killing and war thing? And I realized that, wow, this is like you are training to be an assassin, so to speak. You're training to be a defender of this country. And sometimes it gets ugly and you have to be prepared to kill or you're going to be killed. And like this was just such a huge culture shock for me. And it just transformed my whole way of thinking. I was like, okay, well, all right, I'm in now. I can't get out. So it was fine. I went through that basic training. And when I did get out to the reserves, it was only about 3 months later where they called everybody back because we were actually going to war. And I just could not believe what I'd gotten myself into because, we hadn't been to war in decades, at least not to the level where they were going to recall all the reservists and force them to go active duty. So long story short, I spent more time being active duty than I did a reservist during the Operation Desert Storm. But while I was in Operation Desert Storm, I had gotten a contract. I still had some contacts in the music business, and I got a recording contract with EMI Records. And I begged and pleaded after the war was over to let me out and let me go pursue this, and just kind of went up the chain of command. And everyone thought it was the coolest thing in the world. They didn't want to stand in my way. And we had just won the war. The whole nation was euphoric and very patriotic. And the base general said, here you go. You're on your way. Don't forget me when you're famous type thing. So I don't think that's ever happened in the Marine Corps. I mean, they made Elvis Presley do his entire service, But I did that for a little while and did pretty well. And for the next, 10 years or so. And then that digital download came along and just turned that whole industry upside down. And in 6 months, what was once a flourishing 7-figure record label was now a $7 an hour bagging groceries job because I filed bankruptcy, got divorced, and the records weren't selling, and it was just terrible.
were you making the music and recording it yourself, or were you more of a producer running a label?
Yeah, I was a music producer recording all the music, and then I had artists that would do the lyrics and the singing and the rapping on top. We had major label distribution. We were a small little independent label, but we had worldwide distribution through a major label. And
so who were some of your artists then?
Well, let's see. We had Eminem on our label before anybody knew who he was.
Wow.
We had Ndea Davenport. I don't know if you heard her. She was in a group called the Brand New Heavy. She was on our label before anybody knew who she was. And this guy, a rapper named Mos Def, was on our label. And Jurassic 5, and then a DJ crew that was pretty famous, the Beat Junkies. And so we had a lot of people back then. That was his early, I guess, mid to late 90s. But it was a very independent crowd. And what that independent music-loving crowd had in common was they really embraced the download before general population even knew what a download was. And when they changed their buying habits from buying CDs to downloading free music off of websites like Napster, it was devastating. At the time, we had no idea what was happening, but our pocketbook sure felt it. And in hindsight, it's crystal clear. But it turned everything upside down. And there's a time where I saw Sony Music laid off 10,000 people, and then Universal Music Group laid off 10,000 people, and then they both did it again. And I was like, oh my God, we got to go find something else to do.
Yeah, it's really amazing how technology can just transform and change an industry overnight.
Yeah, talk about disruption,
Yeah.
and we've seen it since, like with, Airbnb and Uber, and, it's happening all over the place.
But you found yourself then without your music label, you're bagging groceries. Tell me about that period. What you received some advice from someone that helped change your perspective on things.
Yeah, totally. Like I said, the Marine Corps was my plan B, but I wasn't going to go back there because I was out now. And so I didn't have a plan B. Music was going to be it. And I went out and looked for a job and found out there wasn't a whole lot of demand for an out-of-work music entrepreneur. So that's where I ended up, was bagging groceries. So I was there just trying to figure out what I was going to do next. I knew I had to learn something new, and my eyes were just kind of set on what is going to pay me the most. Like if I can, because I really missed my lifestyle. I missed my income from the music, and the most unlikely mentor was the grocery store manager. We both happened to be 34 years old at the time. I was bagging groceries and he was running the whole store. And he said, Matt, if you really want your money back, real estate, that's the final frontier where the average person has a real shot at creating some wealth. And I was like, really? Okay. Well, I had no other options at the time, and that was about the best advice I had received in the last 6 months. So I went all in and took a bottle of wine home that night and just started Googling everything having to do with real estate, and ran across an aunt that I hadn't seen her in probably 15 years. And she happened to be the number one real estate agent just 2 cities over. And so I sent her an email, and the next day we had lunch. And the day after that, I think I was enrolled in real estate agent school, because if you want to get rich in real estate, everyone has to become an agent, right? That's what I thought. And it only took me 4 years to figure out that probably wasn't the best option. And if I wanted to be wealthy in real estate, I was really sitting on the wrong side of the desk. So I had made another decision. It was another pivotal moment for me to become a real estate investor. And I made this declaration that I was never going to represent another person on the buy or sell of a property again. I was only going to represent and act on my own behalf.
In acting on your own behalf, how did you decide what strategy to go toward? Because there's so many ways you can make money in real estate, so many paths you can go down. How did you figure out what path to go down?
Yeah, I didn't know what path to go down. I didn't know there were multiple paths. As a real estate agent, you're just in such a small little box. You really only think there's one way to do things, and it's just so not the case. So I had made a pretty large investment in my real estate investing education, and it was a well-rounded education to where I got to see all those different options. And at that moment, I didn't have a lot of financial resources. My credit was still recovering from my bankruptcy and my divorce. So I was really drawn to a class and a series of courses that they had called Creative Acquisition Strategies, and how you could really invest in real estate and make money, not needing a whole lot of your own money. And so that's kind of what directed me, is just kind of what my financial situation was at the time.
So how do you define yourself as a real estate investor? You're using creative acquisition strategies, but what exactly are you buying? You have a portfolio of over 100 units. What does your portfolio look like?
Right now, it's not necessarily 100 units now. It's about 50 units and then 50 notes on properties. And I'm a straight cash flow investor. So my intent every time I get a deal is how can I hold this and create some additional cash flow for myself? I don't consider myself a wholesaler or a fix and flipper or a lease option person or subject to person. I really focus on finding deals, finding distressed property owners that have problems and providing my solutions. And ideally they give me some equity in exchange and I give them peace of mind. And so I just try to find those deals, get them under contract. And once I have them under contract, and then I decide, okay, what's the highest and best profit for myself with this deal at that time? Do I need some cash? Do I need to flip it really quickly? Then I'll do that. Do I have some cash in the bank and I just want to increase my cash flow? Maybe I'll do that. So it's all based on what the deal represents for what that actual deal can provide and then what I actually need at that time. And that's how I make my decision. So it's a deal by deal basis.
So take us back to your first deal. How did you find it and how did you take it down?
Sure. Yeah. The course that I was in at that moment was that one of the strategies to find deals was driving for dollars. Nothing new and creative there. But just start driving up the streets. And when you see houses that look like they're a little bit distressed for the neighborhood that they sit in, write the address down and go back and look up their phone number and make some phone calls. So that's what I did. It was in Long Beach, California. I found a little house there that looked like it had been abandoned. It looked like a rehab team had started it. They left it, and then it had been sitting there rotting for a little while. I was like, well, this looks about as distressed as I could possibly find. And it just happened to be listed when I went back and looked it up. And I made an offer. I told my mentor at the time, I said, what do I do? And he says, make an offer. I said, I don't have any money. He says, don't worry about it. Get under contract. And so I went and I made an offer and it got accepted. And I went back to my mentor and said, okay, now what, smarty pants? How are we going to buy this thing? And he says, now this is what you do. You go through your network. You're going to go to networking events. You're going to go through to your RIA meetings and you're going to share what the opportunity that you have. And you're going to share what's in it for the people that you need something from. And that right at that moment, it was I needed money. So he taught me a really creative way of just to go to RIA clubs and stand up and say, almost every RIA club will have that once and have section of the meeting where you can stand up and grab the microphone and share what you need or what you want. So he just taught me a really cool system for doing that to be really quick and efficient in 60 seconds or less. Every single person in that room that is interested or would be potentially interested in what you had or what you needed would meet you in the back of the room. It was a really cool, efficient way to network and work a room. And within 2 meetings, I had the money for that deal. I had the crew for that deal. And we went to work, and it was done in about 90 days. And we turned that little single-family residence into a fourplex, and I put $26,000 in my pocket. And I really didn't have to come in with the money, and I didn't have to do any work.
I'd like to take a moment to tell you about Green Property Management. Not only do they manage everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area, they also manage my entire portfolio. So I can tell you from personal experience that their unique flat fee management style is worth a closer look. If you feel that your property isn't operating to its fullest potential, then Green Property Management can help you take a holistic approach that will save you money, eliminate your headaches, and increase your net income. And if you're a property manager interested in applying Green Property Management's model, give them a call at 1-866-95-GREEN or visit them on the web at greenpropertymgt.com. Do you remember what you said at that REI meeting?
Totally.
What did you say?
There's a formula. Part one was you have what we call an audio business card. So I was basically tell them who you are and what you do. And then you focus on what's in it for the person that you're looking for. That's part 2. And then part 3 is give them a call to action. So it'd been something like, hi, my name is Matt Theriault. I build cash flowing portfolios for busy professionals so they don't have to work so hard. And today what I've got is a deal just down the street. I've got it 30% below market value. I'm looking for the money. Could probably generate about a 26% return for anyone that wanted to partner with me. If you'd like some more information on this property, meet me in the back of the room. I'll be happy to give you a flyer. And that was it. So that was less than 30 seconds.
Wow, great.
I've just done that over and over and over again. You tell them who you are, what you do. what do you have and what's in it for them, and then tell them how to get more information. And, you're in a room of 100, and only the 4 or 5 people that were actually interested in what you had will show up in the back of the room. So that saves you a whole lot of time of having to talk to all 100 people and give your sales pitch. So it was just a really efficient way to work your deals.
So how do you follow up on that? When they do meet you in the back of the room, what do you say at that point?
Oh, well, that's where you have the actual conversation where they want all the details. You have a little property flyer. It's got all your contact information, and you tell them how the deal works. And you want to practice that so you can write it down essentially on a bar napkin, make it really simple. When you're looking for money, you want to be able to answer 3 questions. Is it 3 or 4? They always want one. They always want to know the same thing. How much do you need? When and how much am I getting back? Or how much am I getting back? When am I getting it back? And what happens? How am I protected if the deal doesn't work out? So if you got those 4 questions and you can answer those questions in your presentation of the deal before they ask them, that gives you a lot of credibility and instills a lot of trust in yourself.
How did you figure out with this first deal you did, you're turning a single family into a 4-unit? That's a pretty complex thing. How did you decide, wow, for my first deal, I'm going to do that?
Good question. Because when I had done the research, when I was talking to the seller and I found out what had happened, he explained to me, I went through this whole process. My plan was to take the single family residence, turn it into a 4-plex. I went down to the city. I got the plans. I got the permits, everything. And then my financiers, they backed out. So I'm stuck and I can't move forward. So when I acquired the property, the plans and permits were already in place for that job.
Nice. So he had teed it all up for you then. That's great.
Yep. And so I just brought in a money partner and we picked up the ball where he left off.
Yeah. So how did that work out for you? I mean, a 4-unit in Long Beach, California, that must have been a lot more valuable than a single family.
Oh, yeah. One thing I learned with that is if you're a bird dog or just wholesaling properties, you can get anywhere from $500 to $5,000, maybe $10,000 if you got a really good deal. But if you have it under contract yourself, that's the real power. And I was able to negotiate my position in that, which was, I think it was 10%. So we made a $260,000 profit on that, and I got $26,000 from that. But I didn't have to do anything. Someone came in with the money, and someone came in with the crew, and I sat there basically and watched and learned.
So you put the pieces together, no
Yep.
money out of your pocket, and you ended up with $26,000. That's great for your first deal.
Yep.
If you are thinking of leaving your W-2 job and becoming a full-time real estate investor, one of the greatest costs you must consider is healthcare for you and your family. When I made this transition 5 years ago, I found the whole healthcare insurance process to be confusing and frustrating. That's why I'm glad I met Chad Creasy at RCB & Associates. Chad is a professional health insurance agent who helps real estate investors and small business owners understand and choose their best healthcare options. And best of all, his services are covered by the insurance company and won't cost you a dime. If you're expecting a change in your healthcare insurance coverage for any reason, then you owe it to yourself to contact Chad Creasy at rcbassociatesllc.com.
Where'd you take it from there? What'd you do next?
Well, that was only about 60 days after I had taken that course. And I was like, wow, this is pretty easy. Let's go do this again. And it was probably 8 months before I found my next deal. And in 8 months, that $26,000 was long gone, and I was really desperate. And what I kind of discovered as I was going through online classifieds, I noticed that there are a bunch of people that have properties for sale, and then there's a bunch of people there that want properties. And those two categories on most online classifieds are represented. And I was like, wow, if I can just get in between these two people and match them up, then maybe I could make some money here. So that's how I started. After 8 months, I mean, what do they say? Desperation or necessity is the mother of invention. So I just started calling people and finding out more about what they had to offer and what they needed most. And so I'd go through all the people that had properties for sale, and then I'd go through all the people that wanted properties, and I would just start playing matchmaker. And so what I would do with the people that had properties for sale, I'd ask them, if I found a buyer for this property, I don't know if it's going to be a good fit for my portfolio, but if I found a buyer for this property, would there be room for a referral fee in it for me? And, oh, yeah, of course. And then I go to the buyer, or excuse me, yeah, the people that are looking for property say, hey, I don't know if I have anything for you right now, but if I found something for you, would there be room for a referral fee in it for me? And I started just playing matchmaker, and I would ask the people with properties to sell if I could represent and sell their property, and I'd create property flyers out of their properties with all my contact information. I'd go to those RIA meetings and do the exact same thing I did with that first deal, and just started doing that over and over and over again, and put anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 a time in my pocket. And I ran across one specific person that really kind of changed everything for me. He had 35 properties to sell, and he was willing to provide seller financing. And so I put all of them under contract. He had seen me at all the different RIA meetings. He knew I was out there hustling. I was getting it done, and he gave me exclusive to them all. And I wholesaled half of them, and I kept the other half with the wholesale profits. And I became a cash flow investor. And that's really where everything opened up for me.
And so that's where you began your buy and hold portfolio then?
Yep. I got seller financing on, 16, 17 of those properties.
Talk about that deal a little bit. You had 35 single families, were they?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
and he was offering seller financing. What did the numbers look like on that?
I'm in Los Angeles, California, and these properties were in a little small town outside of Chicago. And so those properties were anywhere from $30,000 to $60,000, and they rented anywhere from, I don't know, $500 to $800. So with those financing terms, they were producing between 11 and a 14% cash on cash return.
How did you come up with the funds for your portion of the down payment?
Well, I wholesaled half of them.
So that gave you enough money to keep the other
That gave me enough
half.
cash to start keeping some, yeah.
You're still in Los Angeles?
I am, yes.
But this was an investor who had properties in Chicago or just outside Chicago, Illinois?
Yep.
Wow. Okay. So that's a pretty big switch for you. How were you able to manage those properties all the way from Los Angeles?
There was property management in place, so we spent time just managing the property manager. You know, when you go out and you start the way I was doing it, when you show up to a RIA meeting and you either have properties to sell or properties to buy because you have your other contacts where you can play matchmaker, you start gaining. I initially started because I needed the money. I needed to eat. I needed a roof over my head. But the intangible thing that kind of happened afterwards that I wasn't expecting is I really created a reputation for myself. I almost kind of became famous inside of those RIA meetings and my whole real estate investing community. And when you're out there doing something that people wish they were doing, because everyone's watching you each and every week doing deals, that really attracts money, it attracts buyers, it attracts sellers, it attracts lenders, it attracts partners. And, you know, things came from all out of the woodwork because everybody wanted to work with that type of person. And, you know, I'm out there hustling just because I have to eat and not knowing what I was doing as far as creating a reputation for myself of being the guy that everybody wanted to go to.
So there's got to be more to that reputation. I mean, it's not just the fact that you're hustling and you're getting up, you know, saying a few words at the REIs. What else was it about you that was helping to build that reputation and fame within those circles?
Well, it was very much me standing up and always having something to say there, but ultimately following through, doing what I said. Like the deals would actually close. People actually made money when they worked with me. The
reputation and the fame was because other people were benefiting from their relationship with you.
Sure. I mean, people talk. Those RIA meetings are very, very cliquey, and people talk.
So you started building your buy and hold portfolio. Was it all single families, one single family at a time, or did you do any multifamily in there?
Yeah, mostly single family. We got up to a little over 100 units in single family, and then we ran across, just totally by accident, a 14-unit building in Memphis, a 44-unit, a 50-unit, an 18-unit, a 12-unit, all distressed, totally dilapidated, selling it for pennies on the dollar. I think we bought that 50-door property for $50,000, like $1,000 a door.
Wow.
And so we're like, okay, well, we've really done well, and we're pretty good at this single family thing. Let's go faster. How difficult could this be? It's just, 50 doors under one roof instead of 50 individual roofs. And so we took off that way. And so we just kind of bit off more than we could chew on those because they were major rehab jobs. And But yeah, we went through multifamily, and we've actually just sold that last one about 6 months ago. So we're all exclusively single family and notes.
When you say you bit off more than you can chew with the multifamily rehabs, what were some of the problems you had?
With the single families that I'd had, it was pretty easy to just put paint, new carpet, maybe a bathroom here or there. But these needed full electrical, full plumbing. I mean, it was way above my knowledge base. And I hired contractors to go out and do the work for me. And working with contractors to that degree and at that level was way above my experience level. And, I got screwed a few times. People just didn't do what they said, or they took the money and ran. And it was a terrible experience. Okay. So I was like, let's go back to doing what we know. And then when we make that venture back into multifamily, we'll know what not to do again.
So was it just the rehab experience that turned you off from multifamily, or are there other reasons you prefer single family over multi?
I mean, a lot of people ask me that, like, what markets why do I choose the markets that I'm in? Why did I choose the asset class that I'm in? I think when you're a cash flowing investor and the passive income is what's really important to you, I think you've got to do as much due diligence on the people that you work with as you do the properties that you purchase. And I really think real estate is really, really safe. The people involved are risky. And when you start getting big in the manner that we have, you can't do it all yourself. You have to delegate. And I think where I really made the mistake was I didn't delegate, I abdicated. And I just kind of gave up control and let people go do their thing, trusting that they would do a good job. And I don't think one person did until I got back involved and had to start firing people and just selling stuff off and, try to stop the bleeding and then recover and regroup.
So in going forward then, I mean, you're focusing on single family, you've built systems, you've built a team. What do you look for as you did that?
I look for the team now. I think you could find the best market in the country with the best properties that are going to cash flow and give you everything you want. All the economic indicators say so. But if you don't have a good team there, that could be a really disastrous experience for you. But I think you can go to any, just middle of the road town and invest there. If you've got a great team, that's going to be a great experience for you. So I really invest in teams now. I invest in the people. I look at that before I look at the properties and before I look at the economics. Certainly all that stuff's important, but if I don't have a good relationship and a good, trustworthy, competent team there that I can rely on, then I don't go into that market.
And what are some of the indicators then that you look for to tell if someone's going to be a good team member or a bad team member?
Yeah, that's. I think we all look for the same thing. Do you like them? Do you trust them? Do you believe they're competent? Do they have referrals? How long have they been in business? And when you're interviewing contractors, when you're interviewing property managers, they're on a job interview, and they're going to be on their best behavior. They're going to tell you everything that you want to hear. So at some point, you have to take a small leap of faith. And what we've learned to do is take very, very small leaps and try to go deep with those relationships before we go wide. So in the sense of giving them one property to manage, and let's see how that goes before we give them 10. I think to find good relationships, you have to work with a lot of bad ones.
Building a good team is definitely, an important component to building a successful real estate investing business. What have you found are some of the other components?
The components to building a successful real estate investing business, I think certainly the team members, as we just mentioned, and I think systems, being able to duplicate processes and documenting all of that, and having those systems where the people can be interchangeable. And we're big on checklists over here. We're big on standard operating procedures. I think that's key. And I think when you get to the point of being able to leverage all of your lead generation, so you have a steady flow of leads, a steady flow of opportunity. And when you can, that next level of getting to the point where you can leverage your sales and your conversions of those leads, then I think once you've got all that in place, it's pretty tough to lose in this business.
So can you give us kind of an overview then of what kind of business you're running, what your team looks like and what kind of systems they follow?
Let's see. We have a fund, the Epic Wealth Fund is where we run all of our own investments under that umbrella now. And we have three strategies. We do transactional funding. We do we buy and then resell with seller finance notes, and then we buy and hold long term. And so those are the three strategies that we operate underneath that umbrella. And we look for deals, we answer phone calls, we put them under contract, and we execute our exit strategy.
And is this team that you have, are they local to you or are they remote?
No, we're in 10 different markets across the United States, mostly in the Midwest and the South. If you want to be a cash flow investor, that's kind of where you're limited to. You're gonna struggle a little bit if you stay on the coasts. So we're pretty much in middle America.
One of the topics that you talk about is how to retire young.
Yeah, I did that. That sounded like the ultimate dream. And I wasn't wealthy, I wasn't rich, but I was certainly financially free to a point where my passive income each month exceeded my monthly expenses. And I did that, and you can only go to the driving range and watch Netflix every day for so long. And I got restless, which I never thought that was going to happen for me, because I couldn't wait to just stop working and not do anything. And after about 30 to 45 days of that, I had the urge to start my next venture and just keep on going.
And that venture is your business that you have today?
Yep. We've got three heads of our business of Epic Real Estate. We have the fund, which I just mentioned, and people can invest in the fund. They can buy shares of what we do. We have a turnkey operation where we will hold a busy professional's hand that wants cash flow but doesn't necessarily want to do all the heavy work, but they can call the shots and they can leverage our team and resources to get that done. So we'll do it with them. And then we have an educational platform where we'll show them how to do what we do. And it's been we've been doing this for about 9 years. So it's been really been a lot of fun.
And you talk about performing notes, not performing and non-performing notes. What? Tell me a little bit about that too.
Well, I'm not your typical note investor where people buy notes. I actually buy properties and I resell them on a note. So I hold the financing myself, and I have no intention of ever selling those. I want the cash flow. So I think once you get to a certain point of properties to where you've maxed out your tax deductions, and you might not want to take on any additional property management headaches or the potential for those headaches, and you really want to accelerate and maximize your ROI and maximize your cash flow. So we started reselling our properties with seller finance notes. So we have passive income coming from properties that we own, and we have passive income coming from the notes that we own on some properties.
So can you give us an example of how that might work, how you might pick up a property, what kind of money you might put into it, and then the terms you look for when you sell it on a land contract?
Sure. So say, let's go very vanilla, an $80,000 property in Alabama. We pick it up for $60,000. We might put $5,000 into it, just clean it up really nicely, as nice we can. And then we put it on the multiple listing service and sell it with seller financing. So because we're offering the financing and there's no banks involved, we can sell it at a premium. So we might sell it for $85,000 or $90,000. We'll take 20% down. So we'll put another $15,000 to $20,000 in our pocket, and then we'll work that note in a way that price or their monthly payment is going to be just below what it would be for them to rent that property. So it's a really super high return. That could be anywhere from an 8 to 9% return for us on that note. But it would still be $100 less than what they would pay to rent that property. So it's a high win for us, a big win for the owner. And that's kind of the standard model.
And the owners who would buy this from you on the land contract, would they have difficulty getting financing from a traditional bank?
Yeah, most of the time that's the appeal, is that we say we've got a few little criteria, but nothing major. If you've got the down payment and no bankruptcies, you're pretty much approved with us on a job. You need a job too. But yeah, those three things. And so our underwriting is really light.
You've got so many creative strategies to create passive income. For our listeners out there, where would you suggest they start? What's the best way to get into creating passive income for yourself?
I think the first thing is a shift in mindset. anytime that money crosses or exchanges hands, if you're involved in a transaction, consider how can I turn this into a stream of income rather than taking this pile of cash off the table right now? I think that's number one. You got to really get yourself into that mindset, because you can, the traditional way, whether you're flipping houses or you've got a corporate job, the traditional way is creating a giant pile of cash, saving this cash to a point where at some point you can invest it somewhere where the interest rate will pay you that stream of cash. So you're saving these piles to create the stream. I think a big shift in mindset is, let's create the stream to create the pile. Reverse that. And that can be a journey that's 10 times faster than that traditional route. So that's key, is just really focus on the passive income. The second part would be to find the deal directly with sellers, to where you have the ability to negotiate seller financing for them to carry back the note. And that would be the first place. The second place would be find people that aren't necessarily real estate investors but have cash available to invest. Offer them a good return, secure it by real estate, and you can leverage other people's money in that way as well. And for example, the deal that I kind of mentioned to you, that would probably be, I don't know, maybe 20, 25% return for us. So there's plenty of people that would loan you $80,000 for a 10% return, and then you can create that arbitrage where you've got 18% for yourself. So you're not necessarily borrowing money, you're giving people an opportunity. So I think a shift in mindset there as well, to see the value. When you're good at finding deals and you're good at negotiating creative terms, you're actually doing people that have money a significant favor. So I don't know if that answered your question, but that's how I get started.
When you were working at the grocery store and you got advice from the manager that set you down this path, did you ever go back and talk to him and find out where he is? Is he still at that grocery store, or did he ever follow his own advice?
Yeah, I've been asked that question a couple times, and I can't even remember the guy's name. I think it was Warren. But yeah, so did he follow his own advice? Absolutely. And that's what really inspired me to take action. We kind of brushed over that really quickly. But there was a particular day at the store where I was having a hard time, and it was a rough day for me. And he could see that I was upset, and we went up to his office, and he just asked me what was wrong. And I basically shared everything I just shared with you. And like, this is just really tough. I'm used to making a lot of money. I can't believe I'm taking my lunch breaks with 16-year-olds and I'm making $7 an hour. And I'm just like, I'm not having a good day. And that's when he shared with me, Matt, if you want your money back, it's going to be through real estate. And this is why. And he opened up his portfolio that he had. Took a lot of pride in his own portfolio. He had pictures, and it was all in a 3-ring binder and everything. And he had his pro formas and everything all laid out really neatly. And he said, Matt, I've started working at this grocery store when I was 16 years old. I'm 34 years old now. In 2 more years, I'll be able to withdraw 80% of my pension. And along the way, I've been able to pull together these 6 apartment buildings. And these apartment buildings are going to pay me more than that 80% of my pension. And in 2 years, I'm going to be done. And that was the big example, and where the light bulb really went off, and what, I guess, created that commitment and that conviction to go for it.
Wow. So that's great. So there's a real estate investor working a full-time job, but with a strong plan to retire off of his portfolio, huh?
Yep. And probably one of the most unassuming people that you've ever seen before. Yeah, he was just very disciplined over those 20 years and created something really special for himself.
Yeah. And did you ever let him know how his advice had changed your life?
I did not, only because the real success for me came long after he was no longer there. So I had no way of being able to track him down. And like I said, I don't even remember his last name.
A couple other questions here. So being in the Marine Corps, I'm wondering what lessons you drew from your experience there that's helping you in your real estate business and the systems you've created.
The one thing, there's all kinds of intangibles, just do it and plow through it until you get it done and complete. And complete it entirely, and do a job that you're proud of. There's that, but I think really, when you go into boot camp, you're on this bus. It's very much like what you would see on TV, and you pull up to the recruit depot, and the drill instructor jumps on the bus, and he starts screaming at you, and everybody starts filing off the bus all loud, and there's these yellow footprints on the ground. He's yelling at you to find a set of footprints and stand on it, and you're in this total environment of culture shock and disarray, and just like you have no idea what's going on. It's a very uncomfortable situation. But you know that you're being guided by somebody that's been there before. And so that's the only thing you really have to have faith and trust in, is that drill instructor, and trusting that, he's going to do you right and turn you into a Marine. And then from there, you've got the next 3 to 4 months with this person, and they've got a daily schedule. Like every single day, every minute of that day is all scheduled out. And if you go through that process and you just complete one day at a time, 13 weeks later, you're going to come out a United States Marine. And so I look at that as a good metaphor for every project I take on. I understand, okay, I don't really know what I'm doing here. Let me find somebody, connect myself with somebody that's done it before. And what are the basic daily activities I need to do that, at some point in the future I can look up and I will have accomplished what I'm going to accomplish. And so I've just kind of taken that mindset or that model and kind of placed it off on top of anything that I want to accomplish. So I guess that would be the biggest thing I've gotten from being a Marine and how that's transferred into business.
The last question I have refers back to your music career and the successful business that you had built, and the technology that came along and disrupted that business to the point where it pretty much disappeared over a 6-month period. When you look at the successful business you've now created in real estate, I'm wondering if you see any disruptions on the horizon, anything that can take what you're doing or what all of the real estate investors listening to this are doing and disrupt it in such a way that it could have the same effect.
I'll never say never, because that's one thing I learned from music, is that I was thinking no one's going to want to download music. They want to walk into a store and hold a CD case and look at it and feel it and read it. Like, I was so romantic about that idea, and boy, was I wrong with that one. So I'm not going to make sure that I don't make that same mistake twice in the business I'm in right now. But I don't foresee any sort of technology being able to disrupt the need for shelter, the need for a roof over our head. So I think the demand is always going to be there. I would like to say that people don't want to buy houses online with just the click of a button, but with all the different things like like for example, a Uber. If you would have told any parent 10 years ago that you're going to allow your children to get into the car with a complete stranger and let them be driven somewhere instead of buying them a car, they would have thought you were crazy. So I know when I was a real estate agent, it was a big fear, and I think it's still a big fear for real estate agents now, where it was right when Zillow came out and everyone was like, oh my God, this is the end. And then there were like the free brokerages or the flat fee brokerages, $500 to get on the MLS. Like, we've had this giant fear that no one was going to need a real estate agent anymore. And here we are 20 years later, and we pretty much have the exact same number of real estate agents today as we did then. But I think at some point someone will probably figure that part of it out. But I think as an investor, I don't know. I think the demand will always be there. We'll always need shelter, and we can always buy low and sell for a higher price. It'll be relative to what market we're in, but there'll always be a relative low price to buy at and a relative high price to sell at.
How would people get a hold of you or find out more about you?
Sure. Well, we just started our 9th year on our podcast, Epic Real Estate Investing. And so you can find us there wherever you download podcasts. And then I just started a pilot program for people that want to get started, have limited financial resources available to them. And that's at freerealestateinvestingcourse.com, freerealestateinvestingcourse.com. It's actually better than free. We'll actually pay you to complete the course as long as you're providing feedback for us, because that's going to help us help more people down the road. So those would be the two best ways.
Well, Matt, I want to thank you for taking the time to be on the show and share your experiences with us. And thank you for your service to our country in the first Desert Storm War, the first Iraq War. It's been a pleasure hearing about how you were able to build a successful career in business, lose it, and then build a completely new one in real estate. Thank you for taking the time to share it with us.
Thanks, Brian. It was a pleasure. I had a lot of fun.
This episode was sponsored by Green Property Management, managing everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area. Find out more at greenpropertymgt.com. And RCB and Associates, helping real estate investors and small business owners navigate the complex world of health insurance and Medicare benefits at rcbassociatesllc.com.
You've been listening to the Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast, brought to you by the Rental Property Owner Association. You can find out more at rpoaonline.org. If you enjoyed this podcast, please go to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and review.